Hello, fellow humans. Apparently, the head of the FBI view is showing, and I'm using their words, radical gender ideology, which basically means humans are pro-trans rights, possibly even scientists or science communicators, should be considered terrorists. The way I see it, challenge accepted, and
come at me, you crowd shits!
Sources in the description, and a few experts help verify facts and graciously help me out. I'm not having them as part of the source because I don't want to get them in trouble, because I'm going to be a little toxic if you can't tell with this. I was also going to do this in a Victorian English style to mock the Queen Karen of the FBI, but yeah, I was at a period of time where a lot of genetics and stuff was not known, and no. I wasn't sure if the stuff was right and got really weird. If you're one of those people who are arguing, because my holy book...
Hello, editor here. Apparently that recording kind of took a weird turn, so just to be clear, I'm trying to say that Eve was trans for those Bible thumpers, the fundamentalists. Think about it. According to you people, if someone's born with an XY chromosome, they're definitely male. Eve was born out of Adam's rib, therefore she's basically a clone of him, therefore born male.
A lot of this is going to be really a brief, really oversimplified, because detailed lists clearly scare the FBI. To list what's in this video, I will list a few things on how other cultures treat this to kind of show that this LGBTQ stuff is not a recent phenomenon. I'm also going to go from the psychology to more of the physical biology, finally list a couple myths, kind of shit on them. Yes, and protecting children is a thing I'm concerned about, and I'm including that on this. Before we start, I want to do a call of action first when they're really traditionally last. There'll be something of a guide at the end. I mean, it'll be the top link below in the description. But just for just at least a direction of where to go. If you know somebody who is LGBTQ, if you don't understand stuff, at least treat them with kindness, assuming you're that kind of person. If you're one of those people who like to troll your friends, continue trolling them. Just, try to do it in a way that we all got triggers. Just avoid those. This stuff's so easy to do. Even I can do that. I mean, if you have any questions, just ask. There are a lot of resources online. I mean, I'm assuming you have internet access, but technically speaking, I could be wrong. For the Christians, for example, I think Jesus' overall message was essentially not to be a daft cunt. Not protecting people who abuse their spouses or kids. I say that knowing there's a certain church or churches that disagrees, apparently, because it goes against their religious beliefs, along with Kash Patel's people. I'm looking at you, Washington State. I mean, at least Dow Jones is above 50,000.
The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about.
Yeah, I did bring that up just to make her happy. Anyways, respect pronouns and whatnot. There are some terrible statistics because a lot of these people are targeted and treated with hate just for being who they are. Many just hide it and lie about it to others. Others may actually discover that they're trans later in life due to various reasons. I'll explain later, but I felt this was important enough to be in the video, and I made a point to include the blah in this. Blah. Let me know if I pronounce it right. Blah in this video as another form of support. Before we start, I need to explain something to the scientifically illiterate bunch. Although I'm pretty sure many of them already rage quit this video. Those people who rage quit, if there's any evidence to show that they're wrong, they'd rather use Sharpies in their eyes and fill their ears with super glue rather than learning. If you're still here and you're kind of using this as to learn, I have mad respect for you. If you're here to do this to, let's say, debunk or shit on me, I respect that. Science is a tool to be learn about the natural world. Think of it as asking falsifiable questions to learn about a story. In this case, there are many questions about gender. To help learning about this story, words like proof you're not going to see me use. Other sources may, but in more official words like the official terminology, proof is more of a mathematics thing and not a biological science thing. I mean, there's other places that will use proof, but it's more of a communication. Just kind of like, you know, scientific theory is different than, let's say, you say I have a theory at a grocery store or a food library or something. And there are many parts of the biological sciences, especially when it comes to the printing stuff. So you got observations, you got experimentations, and like the review papers, they kind of go over what the experimental papers are and just kind of condense them into one spot. The source on the screen right now, I'm sorry, I'm having a brain fart. The source on the screen right now, if you go down and check it out, it's actually easy to read about it. And again, going to the reporting on the science are different types of papers. And I'm not talking about news articles. I'm talking about peer-reviewed stuff. The stuff on legitimate, good journals will have. Like I said, for example, review papers collect information done by other papers. The experimental papers, the ones who do the experiments, really go into borderline obsessive detail about what they did. If you have the equipment, the free time, whatever, you can actually run the same experiment. If they also cite their statement of facts. The only time they don't do this is what's really considered common knowledge, such as Earth's shape being an irregularly shaped ellipsoid, or racing is the best sport.
Fight me!
Also, with cutting-edge science, there are different research papers asking the same question in different ways. One paper by itself may or may not invalidate other papers. Sometimes the answer is shockingly complicated. Before we start, and this is the last one, I promise, the rise of trans people, and I need to point this out right away. The rise of trans people does not mean there's a push to be trans. These people just feel safer coming out. That's all to it. The number of left-handed people rose to whatever percentage is, I really don't care, rose after being left-handed was not demonized so much. The people who say that the rise of trans people is some kind of agenda have less self-awareness than a broken TV. All right.
Hello, editor here again. I'm going to be bringing up a few clips of basically an example of someone that really spread hate towards the trans community and really encouraged some vile stuff, even if not openly saying that people should do it.
The one issue I think that is so against our senses, so against the natural law, and dare I say, a throbbing middle finger to God,
Phrasing.
is the transgender thing happening in America right now. We are in a church, and so it's important to remember Deuteronomy 22:5, a woman shall not wear a man's garment, nor shall a man put on a woman's cloak. For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord your God.
You know, they told me you people were conceited douchebags, but that isn't true at all.
And it was by firearm.
Yeah, that's how you should. By the way, this is my other problem with death penalty. It takes too long, too many
Too
appeals.
expensive.
It should be public. It should be quick. It should be televised.
Your booze mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer.
Let's get going. There's really a long list with trans history. For example, in 1577, the French King Henry III dressed very flamboyantly, even for royalty at the time, and frequently cross-dressed, and when he cross-dressed, he used female pronouns. This individual would even travel with young men, and I'm going to probably mispronounce it, mignons? These dudes would also dress flamboyantly, again, even by royalty standards. I mean, when I say young men, from what I can tell, they would not be young enough to put them on a list. Next, let's consider the OG inhabitants of North America before Europeans came in. And just to remind the American Gestapo, they're not illegal immigrants. But there's a long list of tribes that had members referred to as Two-Spirit. When Europeans came, the disconnect with this culture really goes along with the physical genocide that happened. This is more of a cultural genocide that also happened at the same time. And being Two-Spirit was not viewed as unnatural. I mean, again, I feel like I need to point this out, but not everybody was considered Two-Spirit. So there's this word, TERF. It's actually an acronym for Trans-Exclusionary Radical Feminist. It's just like how it sounds. I mean, it originally referred to feminists that wanted to exclude trans people. It was coined by an Australian blogger in 2008. The meaning has evolved into basically anyone who's anti-trans rights. The hilarious part is that TERFs are claiming it as a hate speech word.
Ooh, so angry! Be careful, so much stress will give you a heart attack. Ooh, what am I saying? Please continue. Never mind what I said.
Just like with anyone who is anti-science or loves to discriminate to make them feel better about themselves, there's really few motivations to be a TERF. The ones who pretend science states male and female, black and white is one of them. You also have the religious people who, because God though, but those people again forget Eve was trans. Just as a reminder, she was born of Adam's rib with XY chromosomes and transitioned to a woman. All right, moving on to more of the science thing. The earlier roots of research on this topic, from what I can tell, go back to the 1920s with Magnus Hirschfeld. This badass devoted his life to understanding human sexuality and was turned into an activist for the LGBTQ population as a result. There's this magical thing called changing your mind based on new information. Kind of a hard concept for TERFs. He introduced the word transvestite. So it's an outdated term now, but like I said, this was early on with the science research, but this happened in Germany. And this is going to sound familiar, but his ideas were considered un-German. And when ICE came in, they stole his documents, basically his research, and publicly burned them. I mean, to be technical, it was the Nazis, tomato, tomato. A trans woman working for him was believed to be murdered during this raid. Just like the people on a list, these are the same people that the FBI protects. ICE, I mean, not Nazis. I'm getting them mixed up. But biology is not black and white. It's in shades of gray. For something that so basic a TERF or a Gestapo can understand is the concept of species. Believe it or not, there are actually multiple concepts of species because there's still gray areas here. And the one example I like to point out is the biological species concept. In short, if two animals mate, have infertile offspring, they're considered the same species. If it's infertile, they're not considered the same species. I mean, it's basic stuff, right? Let me introduce you to ring species. There are species that live around a geographical ring, like the salamander on the TV. The different shades of color are what's considered different species and places where interbreeding can happen. In this case, red can interbreed with pink. They're genetically far enough away where they cannot breed with purple. However, purple can still breed with pink. Catch that? Red can breed with pink, but not purple. Purple can breed with both of them. So, are they all the same species? I mean, you have other concepts such as the lineage species concept, morphological species concept, and linkage species concepts. Each one have their pros and cons. I mean, even the genetics get complicated. I'm going to give you a little bit more detail on that, but with the list that can happen is more than just XX and XY chromosomes. Humans have this, which makes most humans diploid. Diplo meaning two letters. Yes, in nature you can have haploid, which is one chromosome. Some insects like bees are haplodiploids. The TLDR for this is 3 chromosomes, and how that works is another video on its own. For humans, again, I'm giving a shortened version of the biology. On screen is a link to Forrest Valkai's video on this, where it shows up on there, sure, in the smoke app. It's an hour and 40 minutes long, so clearly he's going to go more in depth than I will. Link for it is also in the sources. It'll be like the one right above the source list, if you will, but right below the support source link. Yes.
Nailed it!
I normally do not like to do human biology, but shit. If I get to post something to piss off the Gestapo bastards, I'm balls deep. Okay, normally in humans, the first X with the chromosome is from the mother, while the father's sperm determines the X or Y chromosome. This is really basic stuff. I mean, I'm calling humans specifically on this because there's other options for this. There's also what's considered ZZ and ZW. And this is a whole different stuff for sex determination. A lot of birds, reptiles, insects have that. Some cichlid fish roll with the ZZ option, along with the XX option. So options include ZWXX and ZZXX. And, plants have what's considered male and female. Sometimes they're both. But I don't want to get into fungi. They have mating type, which is actually similar to sexes. Some have over 20,000 mating types for one species. Have fun with that. But going back to humans, I stress normally because there are exceptions. There are females assigned at birth with XY chromosomes. You also have aneuploidy, which are people born with 1 chromosome. This would be XO. Other options include 3 or more chromosomes. Yeah, people can have more than just 2 chromosomes for this. For the human fetus, there are a few things that can happen which causes somebody not to be cisgender, or later on cis for short. I need to stress that this will be an oversimplification. Sometimes why somebody who may not be considered cis is not well understood, even if the mechanism is still known. Like, the first is through the genetics. Here, the source of what is going on could be a simple transcription error or just genetics, just straight up. And for the next part, I'm going to be going a little bit harder. I'll be, again, leaving some stuff out on this, but I want to use this as another example on how complicated biology can be. Keeping this simple, DNA is in the chromosomes. When we bring this stuff up, we're not talking about the first 22 chromosomes. We're talking about the 23rd. Again, for most people. Because the last pair is considered the sex chromosomes. You know how DNA looks like a wrapped ladder, right? When DNA is wrapped around histones, it's called a chromatin. At this point, is unreadable, and these are parts that open up to get read. This is why chromosomes have that look to them. I mean, except for cancerous regions and bacterial virome, this is why all your cells have the same information. You also have transcription factors that loosen the histones I just mentioned, so they can attach themselves to specific parts of the DNA called promoters. This is a particular set of coding. They also release themselves when the code tells them to stop at the termination signal. After that, the cell trims the new mRNA via proteins, which is messenger RNA. The acid looks like a single strand of DNA. It leaves a cell nucleus and effectively meets up with transfer RNA or tRNA in a ribosome. The ribosome is a protein that makes other proteins with materials gathered by the tRNA. This is just a high school level introduction of genetics. I'm keeping a lot of the stuff out. So if you're my professor for genetics class, I know. But back on topic, on the screen is a list of protein coding genes for mind-brain sexual differentiation. Pause now if you're that curious. Have fun with that list. Historically, this would have been considered intersex than disorders of sex development. However, trans people prefer definition rather than disorder. I'm just going to refer to as, I just simply like to refer to as DSD. And yes, there are more examples I'm giving. Again, this is simplification. If you're that curious, the sources are below for a reason. And for a lot of the stuff, I'm not necessarily going directly to the primary because the primary stuff can be much harder to read. But for the fetus with XY chromosomes, that individual can also appear physically female if they have, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Sawyer syndrome. According to the Cleveland Clinic, it affects 1 in 80,000 births. Basically what happens, instead of having an outie, if you will, they have an innie. Signs really to show that they have XY chromosomes really do not show up until adolescence, and includes things like a lack of hair or hair supposed to grow during puberty, lack of that time of the month, and underdeveloped mammary glands. I mean, this right here shows that this stuff is not black and white. And if you're thinking about the psychiatry of things, according to the American Psychological Association, being transgender should not be considered a mental disorder. And this is something I had no idea. So I made sure to point this out. And I quote from the website: a psychological state is considered a mental disorder only if it causes significant distress or disability. Many transgender people do not experience their gender as distressing or disabling, which implies that identifying as transgender does not consult a mental disorder. For these individuals, the significant problem is finding affordable resources, such as counseling, hormonal therapy, medical procedures, and the social support necessary to freely express their gender identity and to minimize discrimination. Many other obstacles may lead to distress, including lack of acceptance within society, direct or indirect experiences of discrimination, and assault. These experiences may lead transgender people to suffer with anxiety, depression, or related disorders at a higher rate than non-transgender persons. I mean, these geeks know what they're doing. They have also changed and adapted new information. This video's long enough, and I do not have experience with psychology enough to really talk about it on this platform. I kind of somewhat know my limits. But for those of you who don't like data, you don't like any of that stuff, you'd rather have anecdotal? But basically, if you prefer stories, the common one that's used is involving a botched genital mutilation called circumcision in 1966. I cannot straight up even reword this, so I'm going to quote Dr. Kowitz on this from his article, with the title being "A Boy Raised as a Girl Killed Himself 19 Years Ago Today." Keep in mind, with this quote, Money's a doctor and Bruce is an infant at this point in time. It's easier to make a hole than to build a pole, as one surgeon put it. So Money advised that Bruce be castrated and have his genitals modified to look as typically female as possible, then be raised as a girl while keeping the real story secret. This, in fact, did not work. He never felt comfortable being a girl. His parents confessed what happened to him when he turned 14, and the trauma stayed with him for the rest of his life. But he ended up getting married, became a proud stepfather. However, in the end, she ended up leaving him, and he committed suicide in 2004. So the lesson is genetics and prenatal hormones do matter. There's going to be, first in the stats, there's going to be some old information, partially because Fast Food Daddy cut so much funding for research on this. I was reading the Two-Spirited booklet. They listed a survey done in 2011, and these stats were from the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, released in February of that year. 41 reported to attempt suicide, compared with 1.6 for the general population. This alone, right here, should be a red flag. Just over half were harassed in school or fired due to bias. 61% were victims of physical assault. 64% were subjected to, I'm going to refer to as carnal assault. The numbers are different from elementary school to 12th grade age range. For example, 15% reported to leaving the education system. The reason was harassments and assaults. This includes 31% reporting harassment from school teachers and employees. Yeah, these bills are about protecting kids.
Oh, by the way, I was being sarcastic.
Well, duh.
Yeah, if you mean by protecting them, protecting people who went to an island I'm just referred to as Kid Rock. But with that in mind, that is a big reason to let schools not alert their parents if their kids are using different pronouns at school. The reason for this is kids are scared of their parents. And yes, denying care is a form of child abuse, in case you're wondering. This goes for medical and emotional abuse. But kind of going back to the assault thing, states with bathroom bans, they actually have more assault cases. We're talking about 35% reporting that they got assaulted. This even gets dumber, especially for kids. Who's doing the policing and how? I mean, Epstein's gone now. He's one of the leading experts as far as I'm aware. I mean, we suppose we have experts on the field on his list. I mean, they're not being prosecuted overall. After all, I mean, especially non-binary or intersex people, having more privacy options like current changing areas could actually be a big help. I mean, when you think about it, it could be a boost for cis people who do not like getting undressed around people due to trauma or various other reasons. Moving on to sports, and from I'm about to say I'm using air quotations, but the fingers are kind of stiff right now. Sex verification testing can cost $1,000 to $15,000 per athletes. And these bills really don't have a way of saying how that's going to get paid. But if you look at women's sports, because that's one of the really big chief complaints, as far as I can find, women's sports really have it rough. They have more harassment, they get paid less, there's overall less funding, and there's a shocking number of abusive coaches. Yeah, think about it. But the Olympic Committee even points out that banning trans people or forcing them into sports to sex assigned at birth, even they point out is dumb. And these are the humans that consult with people who are experts in fields such as sports science, medical science, and human rights. Again, all of this is just the tip of the iceberg. The protecting kids is hilarious considering the harm that's being done to them, especially with these bills. And when you're talking, and just to piss off the Gestapo, do not forget Kash Patel is clearly protecting the pedophiles. Then turns around and says trans people are nihilistic, violent extremist group. But again, sources below if you want to do further reading. Due to the feedback I got, I made sure there was a better, more obvious reference to sources. That's why the numbers on the screen. I probably should point it out earlier, but So thank you, Mr. Hoven fans. Above the sources, you're going to have a link on how to be a ally if you want to figure out how to be even a better ally. And right below that is Forrest Valkai's video, which again, over and over long on sex and this topic, mostly the biology of it. So again, with the call of action, what you're going to do, how to be an ally is going to be different based on your relation. And I brought that link because my old university's Pride Center gave me some resources to help me out with this, and they recommend that site. Thank you.
You smiled, and for a second I got a warm feeling, but then it was ruined by those disgusting ass teeth.
You're like a professional asshole or what?
Pretty much a pro.